Probably would have helped if I
Tech
added.
teams run on Notion.
It runs on
Imagine
Notion. Probably would help if I add myself to the stream. That probably would have helped a little bit. We got the R0B in his house. I see him. He was there. He's disappeared. He's gone away. We got the New York Football Giants coming up. It's been more than a hiccup since I've done either a video or even jumped on a live stream. I can't even remember. It's been 3 weeks now since we've done a live stream. I think it is. And I think it's been 15 days since the last video. What's there to talk about? We got the Saquon Barkley coming up, potential signing before the 17th. Here he is.
I was making a baby bottle.
He's got to get the squeaky chair in place. That's what he's got to do. We have the July 17th deadline for Saquon Barkley. Not only the
coming up in 8 days.
Not even the self-imposed deadline, but the league deadline. In reference to this information, in reference to this contract, in reference to his ability to, if he is going to still be a Giant. What are you thinking, Rob?
I mean, I still think he'll probably be a Giant. I don't think he's going to get traded or nothing like that. But it's deadline's in 8 days, so we'll find out if he's going to be a Giant past this year or just for this year. But I don't see him sitting out. I don't see him doing that and putting himself at risk. Although it worked for Le'Veon Bell, but I don't see him doing that.
There have been running backs that have held out. There have been running backs that held out until the start of the season, and we kind of know at times how those things have worked out for those types of players. A lot of times injuries crop up within that first week, sometimes even within the first couple plays.
Yeah.
You know what my feeling is this, and I've said this once before. I think he has a little. I think Saquon has a little Barry Sanders in him. Barry Sanders, still at the top of his game, just walked away, dropped the football, and said, "Nope, I'm done." Walked away from a big contract, walked away from a huge signing bonus, and just turned around and said, "I don't want to do this anymore. I put my body through this for 10 years or whatever it was." Saquon's not at that point yet, but I kind of think Saquon's got a little Barry Sanders in him. I think I'm not saying he doesn't love football, but if you listen to him talk, if you see other things that he does, I think football does not control his life. I think it's one of those things that certain players, that certain people in this league are football players, and that's all they are. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's their career. That's something they've been doing since they were 8 years old in Pop Warner. But I think Saquon Barkley is the kind of guy that, at the end of the day, I think if he did hold out or if he did just decide to walk away, I don't think he's going to do like a Tiki Barber and have regret. I think he's just going to be like, okay, I'll go do something else.
No, I mean, he could. I mean, I could see it, like if he can't get a deal done with the Giants, right? He says, hey, you know what? I don't want to play for another team. I'll just retire. Or, or I'll walk away or whatever the case may be. Maybe. I don't know. I think football doesn't run his life. That's correct. But I don't see him I don't know. He doesn't seem like the guy that would pack it up and walk away, in my opinion.
When Barry Sanders did it, what did people think? When Megatron did it, what if Calvin Johnson at the top of his game did it, what did people think?
Yeah, but I mean, the difference, I think when you look at the situations, like Barry and Calvin were the Lions, like respectively in their different eras, right? Like, I mean, they were the Lions and they took a beating over their career, and
okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Right now, Saquon Barkley is the Giants, and Saquon Barkley in 5 years has taken a beating throughout his career.
But the thing is, but I'm not saying that that Saquon hasn't taken a beating, and I'm not saying that he's not the Giants, but I don't think that Saquon is for the Giants what Barry was for the Lions. Like, Barry single-handedly won them games time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. And yes, Saquon Barkley has won games, but he has not done it near to what Barry Sanders has done. And even Calvin Johnson was a freak and single-handedly won them games. That was like that.
I think Matthew Stafford had a little bit to do with that as well.
I mean, he did. I mean, like,
because you don't have someone throwing you the ball. Look at some of the Giant wide receivers.
No, I mean, look, Matthew Stafford was a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. Like he was definitely a good quarterback for him. I just think, um, I just think like, I think Barry was at a different point in time in his career where I just don't think that he saw a trajectory to sustain success. And I think he just wanted to get out. That when you look at what they did, like they didn't really build anything. Like if Barry was off that team, the team was ass. That team, you could argue that team never recovered until Calvin Johnson got there. And as far as being relevant, and the same thing. I mean, now they're earning some respect, but I don't think that the Giants are in that way. Like if Barkley walked away, that the Giants organization would be in shambles. Like I don't think it would be in shambles the way that the Lions were.
You don't think if Saquon Barkley decided to hang it up, not hang it up, but you don't think if Saquon basically said, "Listen, I'm not going to play this year. I'll figure it out, figure something out, but I'm not going to play this year." You don't think the Giants in 2023 would be in shambles with Gray and Matt and everyone else at running back?
I don't think that like shambles to me is like a strong word. Like I don't think that we would be in shambles. I don't think that we would win a lot of games. I think we would still be competitive. But like to me, shambles is like you're getting blown out. You can't move the football. Like you can't do anything. I think that Dave's and them would at least have us somewhat respectable without Barkley being on the field. But no, we wouldn't win a lot of games, but I don't think that we would not be competitive. I think we would still be competitive, but we wouldn't win a lot of games.
All right, I like that. Zach Attack says Bryce Wheaton Ford Wheaton is cocky despite doing nothing in the Big 12. I don't know. I haven't heard anything from Bryce. Is he getting cocky, Zach? I haven't heard anything. Hopefully someone will let us know about
Yeah,
that.
I haven't heard any news.
I don't have it. Like I said, I haven't heard a lot of
PFW.
news. I've stepped away for a little bit. David says, "Good morning. Finally got to see a live stream." We got Lester, also known as Swing Culture TV, saying, "GM Tim, it's Lester." We got Matthew, I haven't seen in a long time, saying, "Good morning, Tim. Nice to see you live." Yeah, it's been more than a hiccup since I've been on the mic. Lester says, "GM Rob." We got the Admiral Matumbo saying, "God bless America." Zach Attack says the tag is the non-exclusive tag on Barkley, right? Yes, the non-exclusive tag is on Barkley. So I mean, I don't see him. I don't see anyone going out there, Rob, and saying, "Hey, listen, let's give up 2 first-round picks for Barkley."
No, and yeah, a team could work up compensation for Barkley. It doesn't have to be 2 first-round picks. They could try to work with Joe and work up some type of compensation. But no, I don't think no team is going to trade for Barkley right now.
No, not at this point in time. I also think the Giants work out a contract extension with Barkley. Zach Attack's bringing in saying Saquon is a brand player, in my opinion. I think he's a brand player too. I really do. I do think he's the guy you build around, not just in reference to your franchise in regards to on the field, but I think off the field, he is the Giants brand. You could say, Eli Manning was that brand. At a certain point in time, Michael Strahan, Lawrence Taylor, Phil Simms. These were guys that were brand name players. These are the people that you knew as a Giant. I keep seeing a lot of stuff, Rob. And we got Jeff Newman in there as well, as I see. There we go. What's up, Jeff? I keep seeing things going on right now about you either it's one of these things again that you either love Daniel Jones, you either hate Daniel Jones, you either think Daniel Jones is going to bring the Giants to the promised land, you either think he's not going to bring them to the promised land. And there was a tweet, I don't remember when it was. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. I don't remember where it was. And basically this person was saying, you'll probably sit there and go, I know who said that. Basically saying that if you are an alleged Daniel Jones hater, if you say that you hope that you're wrong, that he is not going to be a failure, that you hope that you hope that you're wrong, and you hope that he's going to be this great quarterback, that you are still a hater, and you are only just saying that because you still hope he's going to fail.
Did C-Web say that?
I don't know who said it. I don't know who said it, but I was literally laughing because I was like, wait a minute. So if you hope that you're wrong, you really don't hope that you're wrong. Because if you did hope that you were wrong, you still want him to fail.
Listen, look, this whole thing with this Daniel Jones thing, I was just talking about it this morning on my live stream I was playing some MLB, and I was talking about with some people that were coming in. I have never seen a fan base, not even a fan base, but I've just in general, other than politics, which I don't get into, but I've never seen one person receive so much attention in my entire life. And the problem is that, you can't have an honest opinion as far as like what I feel is honest for me. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, right? My opinion and Tim's opinion and most people's opinion is that not that Daniel Jones is going to make this leap. He needs to. Like, he's been paid. He needs to. There are some people that don't think he needs to, that believe he's going to. And those people don't provide any statistics. They don't provide any type of examples on why. We're talking about a quarterback that struggles, that's going into his fifth year, that struggles to make to throw passes as far as leading receivers, still struggles to maneuver through the pocket, still struggles to go through his third, fourth, and fifth read projections, and still has trouble reading defenses in some capacity.
Let's give him $40 million.
And this is a guy going into his fifth year, right? And now, listen, could the light bulb turn on, and just sure. I mean, and Wonder Woman's going to swoop at my house and fight an alien from outer space, and Batman's going to pull up and ask me to go on a mission with him. Like, it's not logical, right? Now, you can believe it, you can hope for it, but then there's people that think that you're not a real fan, you're a fake fan, you're not realistic. They try to psychoanalyze. Well, you want him to succeed, but really you don't. You really want him to fail, and then you want to spit in his coffee, and you want to pee on his sandwich or something like that. Like, it's crazy. Like, you can never just have an opinion these days, and just this fan base. Some people in his fan base make me wish that this dude tore his ACL or something and just didn't just play. I don't really feel that way, but
we're gonna talk about the fan base in a second. So this is kind of where I was leading to. But you know what? Rob, someone is here.
I'm Batman.
Just so you know, he's here. So Batman is in the house with the aliens. We got the venerable James Williams in the house saying, "Good morning, boys. Good morning, chat."
Morning, James.
My brother. He says, "Happy 4th of late July." James also says, "The real question: has there ever been a giant player in history that has divided the fan base like a machete?"
Nope.
Don't forget to hit the like button when you come in. I can't think of one. I was reading this comment from James while you were talking, and I was trying to think of a player that really has. It really has divided the fan.
Only two players I could think of would either be Phil Simms or Eli Manning. I mean, that's really about it.
The Phil Simms issue was only the only division of the fan base because of Phil Simms was in '82 when Scott Brunner won the playoff game in '81. That was really the only division. And Phil Simms actually asked for a trade to get out. Eli Manning, I said to say Eli Manning. Yeah, I kind of agree, but I kind of don't agree because of the fact that I think Eli Manning plateaued in year 3 and 4, and that's statistically, and he didn't show a progression. But then he turned it on in the playoffs, and he went on the magical run. So, but to James's point, this is in some ways toxic.
It is.
You have a fan base you have a segment of the fan base. And I don't know what percentage of the segment of the fan base is. It basically says, well, you're not a real Giant fan if you don't love Daniel Jones. If you question anything, you're not a real Giant fan. Then you got the other side of the fan base. It's like, well, Daniel Jones sucks. We can never win. And honestly, I'm kind of stuck in the middle because of the fact that you paid a quarterback, Rob. And we've talked about this, that 3,000 yards, 15 touchdowns. You give him $40 million. If there's not 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, another 400 yards rushing, I think it's a failure. I think it's a failure. This was great. I was trying to go back in time and think of quarterbacks that had limited, that basically outside of Michael Vick, that did more with their legs than they did in the air. And you think of the legs of like Vince Evans, going back to the Chicago Bears and the Raiders, and you go like Bobby Douglas going back way back into the 70s. And these are guys that had very similar stats to Daniel Jones in the 70s and the 80s. Football has changed since then.
Yeah.
And we think that a $40 million investment makes sense. Some people do.
Yeah, some people do. I don't look. At the end of the day, the guy was paid, right? And he got his money, and he's here. There's nothing wrong with setting up expectations. I find it funny is I saw people in this fan base that are pro Jones cheering about, Jalen Hurts getting his contract. And the only reason why a Giants fan is cheering, for Hurts getting a contract is because you don't believe in Jalen Hurts.
Right.
And you think the Eagles made a mistake. But yet the guy in the 2 years that he started showed a huge increase in production. But people want to go ahead and they want to say, oh, well, the reason why he performed the way he performed is because he had A.J. Brown. He's got Devontae Smith. He's got a top-tier offensive line. He's got a top-tier defensive line. He's got this. He's got that. Okay. I could go ahead and I can put you in the best Formula One race car that's out there. I could put you in the fastest car it's got the best brakes. It's got you could turn it on. It's like best turning, right? That don't mean you're going to automatically come in first place in the race. At the end of the day, you got to drive the car. You have to be able to drive the car. So people forget this. Like, yeah, just because they went out and got A.J. Brown and got Devontae Smith, that doesn't necessarily automatically mean that that's why Jalen had success. Yeah, it contributed to it, but he still had to play the position.
He had to put the ball in the place where the receiver could make the play.
Exactly. He had to make the reads. He had to make the throws. He had to know when to pass, when to run. He had to know when he needed to buy more time in the pocket. He had to know how to read the coverages. He had to know how to look off the safeties. He had to know how to do all of that. And yet, people knock on him because and say, oh, well, he only had success. Look at what he had. Now, fast forward, right? Giants fans are looking for Daniel to have that same style of weapons. What's going to stop Commanders fans from turning around and saying, oh, well, you know what? Daniel Jones is only successful because he's got Barkley, he's got Waller. Maybe Hyatt turns out to be a stud wide receiver, right? Maybe a top 5 wide receiver in the league. He's got Hyatt. Look at all these guys. And then maybe they trade next year for Justin Jefferson in the offseason. And then you got Justin Jefferson and Jalen Hyatt catching passes from Daniel Jones. What's going to stop them from saying, oh, that's why he's successful? Look at his weapons. Then what are you going to turn around and say? Now, he was always this good. You're just now noticing it.
I think yes. I think that's exactly what they're going to say.
Yeah, that's exactly what people would say. Look, the bottom line is this. The guy had a good year last year. Had a good year. But the numbers don't lie.
Can you actually categorically say he had a good year?
I think that he had a good year compared to the previous 2. Now, I understand that he had only 15 touchdown passes. He had 22 total touchdowns. So I'm going to do the total touchdowns because total touchdowns matter, right? And I'm saying I think he needs to get the 35 total touchdowns next year.
Average for a starting quarterback in total touchdowns was 28.
It's 28. So he was 5 less than the average.
Passing yards was over 3,700 for a starting.
So, yeah. So I think first year in the system, yes. Did he have like top tier weapons? No. Did he have a serviceable players? Yes. He had a decent year compared to the years prior. I think that was his most efficient year as far as being efficient with the football. Now he needs to turn it up statistically. And now it's not about being as efficient. It's about putting up the stats. And the bottom line is this: we are going up against teams that are going to score a lot of points. And if our quarterback does not produce points and is the reason why we are marching up and down the field, we are not going to win a lot of games this year.
When you talk about him being efficient, I just got a question for you. How many games in 2022 do you think Daniel Jones passed for less than 200 yards?
On a 16-game season,
17 game.
I'd probably say at least 10.
Game. Yeah, it was 10. He
I'd
passed
say at least 10.
10 times under 200 yards.
That's crazy that I even gets that.
How many games do you out of 16 do you think did he not even throw a touchdown?
6.
5 games. How many games do you think he only threw for 1 touchdown?
I'd probably say, 5 games he had none, so that's 11. So I would probably say 1 touchdown. I'd give him, because I think he had a couple of games, I think, where he had 2 touchdowns. So 4,
7.
where he threw for only 1.
He threw for only 1.
How is that possible? Wait, that doesn't make sense.
He threw 1 in week 1, 1 in week 7, 1 in week 10, 1 in week 11, 1 in week 12, 1 in week 13, and 1 in week 16. He threw 0 in week 3, 0 in week 4, 0 in week 5, 0 in week 8. He only had 3 games of 2 touchdowns or more. Excuse me, 4 games of 2 touchdowns or more.
Oh, you're talking about total touchdowns, not just passing.
Total touchdowns.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant just passing.
No. So I mean, this is a guy that I mean, you say that he was efficient. I don't, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I don't see the efficiency. I was at majority of home games, some of the away games. I just don't see. And I'm gonna believe in Dable. I'm gonna believe in Kafka. I'm gonna believe in Shane. But I always hear about this efficiency. You can't even throw. You're in a passing league and you can't throw for over 200 yards. Now I laugh because he had. Okay, you would think that he was throwing for under 200 yards. What do you think the average attempt was per game when he was throwing in those games for under 200 yards? The average numbers of attempts.
Probably like between like 4 and 5 yards per attempt.
No, average just attempts, not average yards. I mean, just the average number of attempts per game.
Probably like 15 to 21.
32.
32 times?
32 times a game he was throwing and not averaging 100. You look at his statistics, it goes 21, 34, 37, 27, 30, 31. I mean, 31, 30, 32 again, 27, 24. So it's not like he's not throwing the ball. And I'm not seeing the efficiency when everything's a check down.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think from the efficiency standpoint, I think it's just not turning the football over. We to be honest, look, we didn't have a team that you could, have a lot of turnovers last year, and he was able to keep the turnovers down regardless of whether I know there were some where there was a flag and it negated a turnover and stuff like that and fumble, and we recovered it and whatnot, and the ball bounced our way. But we didn't have a team last year that could really afford to give up turnovers and stick around in games. And other than the Minnesota game where we were still in that game where we threw an interception, every other game that we threw an interception or turned the football over, it was done. It was over. The 2 fumbles, in Seattle, I think and whatnot, the interception in in Detroit that he threw to Aiden Hutchinson. The list goes on. He had a couple, I think he had a pick in Dallas.
He had 2 called back interceptions in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So, I mean, It's let me run through some of these. We got a lot of questions here and things. Let me run through a bunch of these. Jeff says, "Don't mess with Rob. He'll pee on your sandwich." Henry Hynoski says, "Zach, of opposing defenses." Timothy says, "Will the Giants finally sign Barkley to a 4-year contract extension? Lord only knows." James Williams says, "Eli Manning wasn't hated as much as Jones from the jump." No, he wasn't. I mean, I don't think people hated Daniel Jones right from the beginning. I think there was more of a shock and awe fact that we took him where we did. Let's see here. We got the Admiral saying, "Can you see Thibodeau being the next Strahan?" I say no, because they're different players.
I would say, from like, if you want from maybe like a leader perspective and like being like that defensive, guy that people lean on, yeah. But from like a performance standpoint, I mean, it's too early to say. He's only played 1 year. We don't know what he's going to do next year or what he's going to do the year after that. But I definitely think he's got the leadership capabilities. I think he's definitely going to be a guy that the defense can rally behind. But
I can't even say that because he had 3 good games last year.
But again, I'm not even basing that off of performance. I'm basing it off of the fact I'm basing it off of the fact of like how just how he carries himself, how he motivates a team, but how he is on the sideline, stuff like that.
We said this before. I'm going to say it a million times again, especially I love Kayvon Thibodeau, but you can't be cocky and arrogant without putting up on the field. People forget Strahan had a little bit of arrogance to him. Even going back into, the early 90s, like,
Strahan didn't even want to come here.
Exactly. And with the thing, you go back,
he's like, you drafted me. He's like, you got Lawrence Taylor. What do you need me for?
You go back to 96. He only had 5 sacks, Strahan, but he was still a cocky asshole. And he was actually wearing out his welcome. It wasn't until 97 where he had 14 sacks. He had 15 sacks the next year that he became Michael Strahan and a locker room presence. And I think that's what a lot of people need to remember. You want to talk the talk.
It takes a few years.
You want to talk the talk. You got to walk the walk at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think, and I always get concerned about that with Thibodeau, that if he doesn't progress more on the field and be a consistent impact.
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't mind you talking, but you need to show it on the field. And if you're continuing to run your mouth more than you're producing, then you need to shut your mouth. But no, I mean, he may have had like games where as far as like sacks, but I look at like he had other great things. Like I thought he played really, really well against Jacksonville, running down Travis Etienne, making some plays, that kind of stuff. I think obviously the Washington game where he was in coverage and he stopped them at the goal line. He had the strip sack fumble touchdown. Like, there were games where he may not have had the sacks, but he was definitely making plays. But like I said, 1 year, he needs a few years, see what he's like after year 3 or year 4, and stuff like that and where he's going. But I think he's got, from a vocal standpoint, I think if he can put it all together, I think he'll be a good leader for the defense, for the team.
Well, we have to hope. So I forgot the Zach Attacks super chat. Of course, all super chats go to the Philadelphia Children's Hospital. Don't forget the offense is easier than 10 to 20 years ago. Jones is struggling in an offense-driven league. The defense is really hard to play these days. I mean, he's right. I mean, it's Daniel Jones statistics. If it was 1987, you'd be like, whoa, look at those statistics. 3,000 yards. Even then, Phil Simms, 4,000 yards in 1984. First Giant quarterback to ever to do that. It's the defenses. This is an offensive league. You cannot touch we've talked about this, Rob, ad nauseum. You cannot touch the wide receiver. You cannot even breathe on the wide receiver because then it's a penalty.
Yeah.
I've said it a million times. You go back to the 80s, early 90s, even mid 90s, you could kick the wide receiver. You can go home, steal the money off his dresser, beat his dog, steal his car, and they still wouldn't call a flag. Now you look at someone the wrong way and it's like, oh, that's illegal use of hands. Giants 34 says, hot take. The Giants, Tim and Rob, Jalen Hurts is similar to Colin Kaepernick. Nothing special. They have 2 best seasons and you'll see them. I think they're 2 different quarterbacks.
Yeah, totally different quarterbacks.
I think they're 2 different quarterbacks. I think I outside of Colin Kaepernick's political views, I think he was kind of a guy that kind of what I worry about with Thibodeau. He was kind of vocal, he was kind of arrogant, and he tried to be a leader. And I don't think he really earned the leadership mantle in San Francisco. I think a lot of people were still surprised that he replaced Alex Smith when he did, and he never came to fruition outside of that 7-week run. And I think he kind of, I'm not going to say rested on his laurels, but I think he kind of decided, okay, listen, I took this team to the Super Bowl. I could do whatever the hell I want to do, and people are going to follow me. And honestly, especially in that last year, no one followed him. He got up to lead, and everyone stayed in their seat. Because and I've said this before, you look at Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has got something with this team. And sometimes you could be the right quarterback for the right team. And you see, if you watch, I have to watch the Eagle games because that's where I live. That and the Steeler games. You see his team pick him up. You see them treat him like it's he's the baby brother of that offensive line. You see the people rally around him. He is a leader.
He's in full control of that offense.
Exactly. That is the best way to put it. That is a great.
He's in full control. And Giants 34. Here's the thing. I think a lot of times, and the one thing that I've made an adjustment to is you got to stop looking at the progression of a quarterback from a statistical standpoint and look at what they have around them. And you have to look at how they play the position. And you got to literally watch how they're playing that position. When they take the dropbacks, are they scanning the field? Are they keeping their eyes downfield? Are they keeping their composure? What are they doing to try to buy more time? Are they maneuvering in the pocket, their pocket movement? When are they slipping out? When did they know to run? When did they know to try to buy some time and throw some balls? Where are they putting the ball placement? All of these things. When you watch Jalen Hurts is a much better passer of the football than Colin Kaepernick was. Much better as a passer. Yeah, they can both run, but Jalen Hurts is in full control of that offense and has that team's full respect. Like that whole team will take a bullet for him. And that's something that is hard to come by. Like now, again, the Giants, right? They love Daniel Jones. They rally behind Daniel Jones, right? But at some point, it's going to get to a point where I can tell you this, but ultimately I'm hoping that you're going to back it up. And if you don't back it up, then words are they're just whispers in the air. That's all they are. That's really all it comes down to, so.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. And I think that's why you got to look at it sometimes in this league. So, I mean, it's not always about your physical attributes and what you do. Sometimes it's also what you do mentally and what you do personality wise. There have been I always go back to, if you want to go to a quarterback that really, and it's old school again, but if you want to go to a quarterback that really rallied his team, who was talented, but not the greatest of talent, you have to go look at Joe Theismann. Joe Theismann, Washington Redskins, took him to the Super Bowl, took him to 2 Super Bowls back to back. A lot of people say John Riggins was the reason for those teams also, but it was he kind of had that Jalen Hurts thing where he was the right guy for that team. You want to go a little bit more modern times, you go with Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon of the Bears, 85 Bears, took him to the Super Bowl. Not the most talented of quarterback, a good quarterback, but he was the guy's guy. He was an honorary offensive lineman. He would headbutt everyone. He would do this and this. He was just the right guy for that team. And I think right now with this run with Jalen Hurts, he is the right guy, for the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's see. Let's see. I believe in Joe and company, so that helps me believe in Daniel Jones. Yeah, like I said, I'm not saying don't believe in Daniel Jones. And according to Twitter, that even if you say you hope you're wrong, that you really want him to fail, like I said, I've said it a million times before. I hope Jones goes out and throws for 4,300 yards and 30 touchdowns and we win 10 games. But I asked the same question, and I asked this question again on another live stream a couple of weeks ago. And I'm going to keep asking it. If Daniel Jones had the exact same statistics and the Giants only won 7 games, would we even be having this conversation? Would he even be on this team?
No.
And nobody wants to answer the question. No one still wants to. I propose that question to Daniel Jones supporters every day, and no one wants to even touch the question. And I think it's a simple question to ask, because you talk about how you've mentioned before, Rob, how he's progressed and how he's how he's managing games and how he's how he's being efficient. Okay, it's great when you win 9 games and make the playoffs. But what if you win 6 and don't make the playoffs and you have the same stats? What happens to you then? Are we looking at like Hendon Hooker as our quarterback today, or someone else?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing when it comes down to it is the season last year is overhyped by this fan base. I'm sorry, but it is. And you guys don't have to feel that way, but I look at this from a different. Did we do some good things last year? Absolutely. I just wanted us to compete last year because I knew what we were going up against. We weren't going up against stout quarterbacks. We went up against maybe 2 good ones, that were outside of our division, in Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers. Like, going into the year, nobody knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be as good as he was this year. People were clowning on him, saying that he was going to be a bust and all this stuff going into the year. He ended up being good near the end of the year. Golf had a decent year, but as far as like top tier talent, it was only 2. Now, when you look at, you're going up against Allen this year, you're going up against Jalen again. You're going up against some top tier guys this year that you're going to be playing some tougher teams. You're not going to be able to get away with some of the shit you got away with last year. And just because the ball bounced your way in situations last year, don't mean it's going to bounce your way this year, right? Like, it gets brought up all the time. We were 1 holding penalty and 1 stupid decision from Lamar Jackson away from only winning 7 games last year.
And you were 1 yard away in Jacksonville from losing.
You know what I'm saying? Well, the Jacksonville game, and I say this all the time, like the Jacksonville game, I think we would have won that game comfortably, and it would have ended the way that it did if fucking Barkley didn't go out of bounds 3 times. They would have never gotten the ball back. I mean, they literally got the ball with no timeouts, a minute and 2 seconds, got all the way down to run a play that ended at the 1 yard line. That game is on Barkley. So if Barkley don't go out of bounds, they would have never gotten that football back.
That game is also on the defense.
Yeah, because you let him just march up the field.
You let him march down the field.
Yeah, you let him march on the field. I think it's on Barkley and on the defense 100%. Yeah, Barkley, you can't go out of bounds.
That game. All I'm saying in that game is, like I said, if we had a couple games last year that if the ball goes a different way.
Yeah.
We same thing in Chicago. If Chicago would have figured out a little sooner and Justin Fields actually had a better game, we potentially could have lost that game. Same with the Texans.
Yeah. You got to look at the Commanders game. Like, Terry McLaurin getting called for an illegal formation penalty. Like, him getting called for that. Darnay Holmes not getting called for basically molly whopping, the wide receiver in the end zone. It's just the ball just bounced our way last year. And even the Packers game, Jones had a good drive in that game. And how often do you see Aaron Rodgers getting balls batted back to back in a game? Let alone batted at all. Let alone getting batted balls at all. We got 2 batted balls from Aaron Rodgers back to back.
Yeah, you're right.
Back to back. That shit don't fucking happen ever.
No, it doesn't. James Williams says, hey, he had a good year when compared to his own stats, but an average year when compared to other quarterbacks. I agree. We have Mr. Alvarez coming. His total touchdowns were lower than his rookie passing touchdowns, and he didn't play as good as everyone remembers him gassing up to be. I don't agree. I don't disagree. Lester says if he puts up 4,000 yards, 30 plus touchdowns, and we finished under 500, then he's fine. And there's a team issue.
Yeah, it's a team issue.
There was a team issue.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. I've said this before a million times. I hope to God, Rob, season ticket holder. And
I hope it pans out.
I hope it pans out because
but you really hope that he fails.
If it doesn't pan out, A, my tickets are worthless. B, I'm gonna have to go see a bunch of bad games. And I love when people go, well, it's not your money. What do you care? Yeah, it's my fucking money.
Yeah.
I got an invoice from the Giants that tells me it's my money.
Yeah. It's like, you think I want to sit here on fucking Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays and wish that we lose games?
Right.
Like I
What
schedule.
do you do?
I schedule to make sure that I don't work on Sundays so I can watch football. Like I make sure that I don't work Sundays. I make sure like I call out or get out early on Mondays or Thursdays to make sure I can watch the games. Like, like I'm not a fake fan, so I don't want to go out there and just watch my team get embarrassed.
You are a fake fan.
Yeah, I'm a fake fan.
You're a fake
But
fan.
I don't want to watch my team just get embarrassed. I want my team to freaking win. So yeah, I mean, look, if he throws for 4,000, 30 plus touchdowns, and we're a 500 football team, then clearly he's not the issue. There's a bigger issue that needs to be addressed.
Right.
Maybe somebody got injured. Maybe Barkley got hurt. Maybe the defense needs a few more pieces because they just can't compete with some of these top tier offenses. Maybe our offense was looking good, but the defense just wasn't playing good, and they were just getting scored on like crazy. And it's a heavy defensive offseason where we're adding pieces on the defense. Like, I'm not going to say if he throws for 4,000 over 30 touchdowns and we're 500, then he sucks. Like, I'm not going to say that.
Mr. Perry says, we will score lots of points. Our defense will not give up lots of points. I hope so, because actually we've talked about this before. Wink, statistically, this was his worst season in the NFL in reference to
second worst.
Actually, it was worse than last year. If you go through all the stats, his last year in Baltimore, this was his worst season.
Well, if you're talking about points, Baltimore, his final year in Baltimore was like 23.6.
Not just
23.3.
Not just points, yardage, percentages, everything.
Yeah.
You got to go. It was actually statistically his worst season than his last season in Baltimore. Another great point by Mr. Alvarez says, Mr. Perry says, how many games did he have all of his wide receivers healthy? Give them, I'm going to stop you right there. Outside of Mark Bavaro, name any of the 86 Giants wide receivers. In 1990, outside of Mark Ingram and his big catch, name me the wide receivers that Phil Simms was throwing to. Just name me one of them.
As a matter of fact, E-Man, name me a quarterback in the National Football League that does not deal with injuries at the skill position or on offense in general. Don't worry, I'll wait.
Yeah, I know you'll be late in a long time. That's why I was going to the next one. Jimmy says about the stats. Look at enough about stats. He played significantly better when his. I'm not even going to look at that because I was at every freaking game. And then here's the problem. If you want to know what I got. Okay, Rob, you know what? I'm going to fucking end this. You want to know what my problem is with Daniel Jones? I'm going to tell you guys right now because I'm done with this. Look at him. Here's his problem. This is the brilliance of Gann. I've talked about the brilliance of Kafka, and I've talked about the brilliance of Pat Shurmur. They went back to what he did his rookie year. You cut the field in half, you give him 2 options, and then the third option is for him to run. Play action rollout. Either pass it to the tight end or he ran. He ran that play multitudes of times this year. And what they did is they limited his offense, so they limited his ability to cause the interception, to cause the turnover. The problem is this with Daniel Jones. If you don't let him open it up, you don't let him fly, you don't let him you're never going to know what he's going to do. But I get concerned that not 1, not 2, but 3 coaching staffs have now limited his ability to throw the ball no matter who the wide receiver is because they understand he panics under duress. If you want to be honest about it, look at the Philadelphia. Everyone wants to talk about the Minnesota game. Nobody wants to talk about the Philadelphia game. Nobody wants to talk about how he looked like a deer in the headlights, not a leader. And this is what the Giants are concerned about. And this is what Shurmur was concerned about. This is what Judge was concerned about. This is what Garrett was concerned about. This is what Kafka and Dable are concerned about. You gave him $40 million. The training wheels need to come off. If they don't come off this year, we're going to have to deal with 3,000 yards, 15 touchdowns for the next 4 years. Don't tell me to look at the film. I sit there in the stands. You know what? Sitting there in the stands is a hell of a lot more and seeing the entire field about what's going on. There were multitudes of plays. Everyone wants to make fun of the smooth sounds of Kenny G's, but there was plays where Kenny G was wide open and he didn't even look. There were plays where Darius Slayton was wide open and he rolled the other way and checked down to Barkley or checked down to the tight end. He didn't even look through half of his progressions, as Rob was saying before. And if you're not looking through your progressions, if you're not going through your first, your second, your third, and then back to your first read, you are not a top flight $40 million NFL quarterback. So you either cut him loose this year and let the and let the pigeons fly, let the peacock fly, and see what he can do, or you're stuck with this quarterback play for the next 3 years, Rob.
No, look, I mean, and for the record, guys, I wasn't falling asleep. My eyes were burning, so I closed my eyes. It looked like I was nodding off there for a second. My eyes were burning. Everything that Tim said is correct. Look, when I give this example all the time, and people always want to, and I see all these memes from like PFF. Well, Daniel Jones was at the top for accuracy or completion percentage, or for deep ball accuracy or precision or this, that, and the third
times, and everyone else has 37.
Exactly. Here's the thing. If you're in sales and you're good at sales, right? And your quota is based off of a month perspective, and you finished the whole month at 100%, but I could work 2 weeks and get to 100% and work less days, right? And at that point, my percentages are going to go up because compared to what it is, because I worked less. So my numbers will be almost just as good because I didn't put in as many times, as much time in as you, and all of that all that varies, right? So when you look at Daniel Jones's situation, right, his deep ball accuracy is high because his deep ball attempts are low. So yeah, he might have thrown like, what was it, 20 or something like that?
He had 17 deep ball passes, and 2 of those passes were plays that the 2 touchdowns that he had on his deep ball throws were both plays that were check downs to Darius Slayton that he took to the house. Had nothing to do with Daniel Jones throwing the ball. He has the least amount of airtime, ball is actually traveling in yardage in the air, than anyone in the NFL. Daniel Jones does. That means all of his passes are short passes, either behind the line of scrimmage, 2-3 yard check downs, or maybe a 5-yard screen. When you sit there and you have the least amount of time in the air in reference to your ball, or the least amount of yardage in the air, there's something wrong. That means you're checking the shit down.
Yeah. And I know, and then, well, people will turn around and be like, oh, well, Odell Beckham made a living off of catching slants and taking over touchdowns. Yeah, you're right. But he also made plays down the field where Eli Manning threw it to him. Like right. the catch that was heard around the world was a deep pass. I don't know if anybody remembers the catch that he had against Washington where he caught it one-handed, diving on the left side. That was a deep pass. That was a deep ball. The catch that he had against, I think it was his rookie year against Atlanta, that was a deep catch. So like the catch that he had against the Monday night game against the New England Patriots, where was the rematch and this like that on Butler, that was a deep ball that he caught in stride and then took it the rest. That was over 20 yard. That was over a 20-yard pass. The bottom line is this: when you have a low amount of attempts, I'll put it to you this way, guys. Prime example. Say that Joe Burrow goes in to the year and he has 25 passing attempts in the game, and he's got 21 completions or 22 completions, right? And he's got a high percentage completion. And then in that game, he tears his ACL. And then the backup comes in, plays the rest of the year, and finishes with almost the same amount of completion percentage. Nobody's going to turn around and be like, "Oh, well, that guy's better. He finished with almost the same amount of completion percentage as Joe Burrow." Well, duh, because Joe played less fucking games. Duh. Or if it's higher, he played less fucking games. So, like, that's the point I'm trying to make. So he had less attempts. He completed them, but he had less attempts, so his percentages is higher. When you were throwing and you have an average air yard, I think his average air yards was like 6.1 or something like that was his average air yards. When you're having an average air yard of 6.1 yards per pass attempt, it's very hard for you to throw interceptions. It's very hard for you to turn the football over. Do you know what 6 yards is? 6 yards is a 7 back to 5 fucking curl. That's what that is. A 6 yard depth is a fucking out route. It's a 6 yard out route. Like that's what that is. It's a dig route. Go and look at some of the routing concepts where you have Daniel Bellinger catching a curl in the middle of the field and then turning and taking it for an extra. Those are short, intermediate routes. Those are short, intermediate routes. It's hard. You know how hard it is to pick off a curl? I name you one curl that got picked off by Daniel Jones last year, and that was against fucking Philadelphia, and that's because James Barberry knew it was coming. One curl last year that got picked off. Everything else that got intercepted was like an out route, or the one that got picked off by Aiden Hutchinson was an RPO that almost got picked up by Devin Lloyd against Jacksonville, but Devin Lloyd dropped it. So people want to hype up, oh my God, Daniel Jones, he has high completion percentage. Oh my God, Daniel Jones's precision is high amongst all these quarterbacks. Oh my God, Daniel Jones. Go look at Aaron Rodgers' passing attempts compared to fucking Daniel Jones's passing attempts. And then people, oh look, he's better than Aaron Rodgers. Yet no fucking shit, because Aaron threw it for way more than he did. Go look. I guarantee you, Aaron Rodgers' air yards is higher. I guarantee you that his passing attempts is higher. I mean, come on, y'all. We can't. I know y'all ain't that naive, man. I know y'all ain't that naive. This is basic math. This is fucking shit you learn in 3rd grade.
Speaking of things being overpriced, if you're not happy with your cell phone service, I keep forgetting to plug our partner, Mint Mobile. Go to mintmobile.com backslash, whatever the hell it's called, Big Blue. Backslash Big Blue. And you can get quality cellular service and unlimited service. Right now, they're having a promotion. All their plans are $15 a month. That means you can get 3 months of unlimited internet service, cell phone service, text messages, all that for $45. Try it out. You could get, you know what you can do? Like I said, I got so many Mint Mobile numbers now. It's great because I got so many different projects. But for $15 a month, all their packages are $15 a month. You can get unlimited, $15 a month, talk, text, internet, everything. Go to mintmobile.com backslash Big Blue and get this wonderful promotion. Just had to throw that out there. Just had to give them a shameless plug. Also, they said that just when New York Giants, they took the ball out of Daniel Jones' hands in the red zone all the time. Yeah, but we don't want to talk about that. Admiral Tumber wants to know, what is your DJ fumble prediction upcoming season, above or below 3, Rob?
I'll say above. And when I say above, I mean like, I think he might have like 4 or 5.
I'm going to go 9.
Wow.
Think about it for a second, though. If you truly went out and you got a plethora of wide receivers, you went out and get.
Well, I mean, if he's going to be running it,
it's not. He's
going to be running it the same amount of time, maybe.
He is also going to be hopefully going deep back into the pocket to throw the ball, and a lot of his fumbles come from not securing the ball in the pocket. So you allow Daniel Jones more time in the pocket. I'm thinking at least 9. Eli Manning used to have tons of fumbles. Eli Manning would go like 15, 16 in a season. I mean, if you're going to sit in the pocket, it's going to happen. So I'm hoping in some regards that's what's that's it's one of those catch-22 things. You're going to throw the ball more, you're probably going to get more interceptions, but you're also hopefully going to get more plays completed for down the field. Giants 34 said Daniel Jones is not Dable and Joe signing. It is a Mara signing when an old man are obsessed with something they have never seen the flaws and that everyone else that Mara's on DJ. Do you think it was a Mara signing? Because I know Lester asked the same question. Why do you think the Giants signed Daniel Jones? I personally do think Mara had a say. I don't know if he had the final.
I do,
but I think he had a say in it.
Yeah, I think. Look, I don't think there's a question that John Mara was somewhat involved in these contract negotiations. He's very, very fond of Daniel Jones because of how it reminds him of Eli Manning, and I really think that he wanted to try to keep Daniel here. Look, to answer the question as far as why did they sign him, what option did they have? And let's really break it down. This is really the God's honest truth. Okay, so you go 9-7. Okay, 9-7-1. You're 1-5 in your division. You go to the playoffs. You win a playoff game. You're picking at 25. To move up in the draft to get one of these top quarterbacks that went, other than what's his name?
Will Levis, who fell the second round.
Will Levis, who fell. If you're going to go ahead and get any one of these top quarterbacks, you're going to give up a big ransom to move up within the top 5. And the only spot that you were going to be able to move up to is more than likely going to be 3, which would have been Arizona. Now, are you going to offer up what Houston did to move back to 3? Probably not. So drafting a quarterback was out. 2, look at the free agents. Derek Carr is not a guy that you go when you're trying to rebuild. He's a win now quarterback. He's a guy when you have a team that's ready to compete, you go and you sign. Same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. When you're ready to compete, you go out there and you sign. Now, yes, I think that there are other quarterbacks out here that could have ran this offense the way that it was ran last year, guys like Marcus Mariota, Jacoby Brissett, but it's going to be a hard sell to the fan base when you just won a playoff game and you go and you get a guy like Marcus Mariota, you bring in a guy like Jacoby Brissett. I can understand them doing that and then, say, drafting a quarterback. I can understand them making that move. But just moving on from Daniel Jones after you just won a playoff game and everything like that, and then going and getting a guy like a Marcus Mariota or a Jacoby Brissett doesn't make any sense. So at that point, the best option for them is like, we need to re-sign the guy. And the deal that he got isn't necessarily a bad deal. It's essentially 2 franchise tags is what it is. If they were going to franchise tag him this year and next year, it's basically what it comes out to being. And if he's not the guy, they move on. But that's really what it comes down to. I think that where I think things changed was I think wholeheartedly they wanted to get a deal done with Barkley and they wanted to use the tag for Jones. It just so happened that things changed with the running back market and went to a different direction. Barkley decided he wanted to ask for $17 million at the trade deadline or at the buy, and that's not something that they were willing to do. So I think at that point they made the commitment and said, you know what, let's try to get a deal done with Jones. We can spread the money out that way. It's a little bit more favorable, and we'll just tag Barkley and work it out later because the tag on him is only $10 million. And they made that conscious decision. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Because like Tim said earlier, if we won 6 or 7 games, right now we're probably in the top 15 as far as picking. Yep. If we won 6 or 7 games.
Easier to move up into the top 10.
And it's easier to move up from the top 15 to the top 5 than it is from 25 to top 5. So that's really what it came down. They really had no other alternative. They had no other option, no other alternative. And I think that's why they gave the contract that they did. They gave them they gave themselves a 2-year commitment. And if it's not working out the way they see it, the way they want it to be working in 2 years, they'll move on. They'll get rid of him. I love
this one about Jimmy. Don't forget, he also had the most drop passes in the league. Jimmy, that's a stat. A moment ago, you told me that stats don't tell the story. You had to watch the film. That's a stat. Sorry. Mr. Perry says Kayvon will be better than Strahan. Even Strahan said that himself. First of all, Strahan is the biggest giant homer outside of
what do you expect? What do you expect Strahan to say? What do you want him? You want him to come on? Hey guys. You want him to come on what? Good Morning America? Yo, I met that guy Kayvon. Yeah, that dude's some ass cheeks. He can't even touch my jock strap. He's gonna be a failure. What do you like? That makes me sick when people in this fan base say some shit like that. It's like, what do you expect? Okay, prime example. What's his face? Jari Alexander says they think they have the best quarterback in the league and Jordan Love on their fucking team. Is he right? Must be right because fucking Jerry Alexander saying it, so it must be right. Must be true.
We're never gonna say he sucks.
Yeah, like I mean, get the fuck out of here, bro.
No, my next point. Don't smoke crack.
Yeah, it's like when Isaiah Hodgins comes on fucking camera and says, "Yeah, back in Buffalo, we used to watch Daniel Jones film in the fucking locker room." Shut up. No, you didn't. Shut up. No, you did not. If you were, and if they were, hey, Josh, this is the guy they say is Baby Allen. This guy. This is the guy as clowning on him, probably.
If they did, it's probably why people think Josh Allen had an off season. He was watching Daniel Jones film.
Yeah,
That's what she said.
Give me a break.
Tim, Tim, me and my boys hated the Jones pick right away from draft night. That's true. All love brothers, Gomer Jones. I think you're talking about the late great Homer Jones, giant wide receiver, one of the first giant wide receivers to truly be a vertical threat. Also, the inventor of the spike. I've talked about that. I don't know. I think about a bazillion times. Let's see here. Let me go run through. I'm not going to run through all these. Let's just get to a couple of them here towards the bottom. We did this. Why did we extend him? Moet Olson says, I totally agree with Tim. I went to a few games and there were times Jones got rid of the ball faster than he should have, missing guys wide open. And a lot of times, Rob, people will say, well, that's the coaching staff is telling them to do that.
No,
I don't think the coaching staff is telling him, hey, listen.
That I think that has to do with the offensive line a little bit. You know, like he probably wants to get the ball out of his hands quick, you know, because he doesn't want to take a hit, doesn't want to do that. But you know what? Like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, if you're going to take a hit, but you deliver a 30, 40-yard pass downfield for a big completion, who fucking cares?
But
take a hit.
He was still in the top 5 in reference to most time in the pocket. That's why I said he is an enigma wrapped in a riddle.
Yeah.
People want to say, well, because he doesn't want to take a hit, but it's like, well, he spent the most time in the pocket. He's got a bad offensive line. Well, he spent 3.8 seconds in the pocket.
Look, that right there is just proving that they shut down half of the field last year. Yeah. That's just what proving. All right, read 1, read 2, not there, run. And that's really what it was. That's 1, 2, run up the B gap. That's really what it came down to. Right. That's what it was.
And Mr. Olson, that's why I went to your comment right away, because that really is proof. They always say the proof is in the pudding. And that
I don't know if there's a way of finding this out, Tim, and I don't think that there is. But Jones, I think, had 120 carries last year or something like that. I think it was like 120 carries. I would love to know how many of those 120 carries were designed runs.
That would be difficult to figure out.
Because
I will say that being at 9 games last year, there were a large percentage of those plays which were design runs. I would probably say at least 75% of those plays were design runs.
So, like if there's a good portion of that, or even a small portion of that where he's tucking and running on his own,
it was 100. He had 120 rushes.
120 rushes. I would probably give him at least, let's say 70 of those were designed rush.
I would
actually design
percentage-wise that looking at the advanced stats, 49% of the time those runs ran. He ran for first downs. 49.2%. Let me see if there's any other advanced stats. A majority of these runs, this is kind of what it tells you right here, that they were design runs. Out of the 120, he ran the ball 88 times on first and second down. So, because you would go the third down is usually a passing down. He only ran the ball 28 times on third down. So he ran the ball almost twice as many times on first and second down that he did on third downs.
Well, wouldn't necessarily say that means that they were designed runs, but that could have been where he dropped back to pass, something wasn't there, and he ran.
Yeah, but I see. Here's the problem, though. You don't, to me, that if it was just on one of those downs, if it was just on like first down or second down, that it happened 40% of the time, then I would say you're right. But it's too even between 35.2% and 39.2%. on first and second down that he ran the ball. So that's telling me the majority of the time on those plays that those are design runs, because I would believe that that number would be a lot higher on third downs, because third down is typically a passing down.
No, I hear you.
If you want to look at it from a statistical.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Let's see here. Lester, what does Lester say? Lester says, I think he's not your quarterback. Then you move on immediately. You buy yourself more time in the front office. But to Rob's point, Lester, and I love Lester. I've hung out with Lester. Lester went with us to the draft party. Here, to Rob's point, you won 9 games. If you won 6 games and didn't make the
You
playoffs,
could justify it.
it's a hell of a lot easier telling your fan base, I'm walking away from Daniel Jones. You win 9 games and he has the playoff win. And I said this right after the playoff game. The Giants I said it, and people are like, no. And I always love it because you can go back and watch the damn video. People are like, well, you said they weren't going to sign. I said after the Minnesota game, they will re-sign Daniel Jones just off of this win. And I called him Jerome James, formerly of the Knicks, who was with the Detroit Pistons, who had a wonderful playoff series. Isaiah Thomas went out and gave him a big ass contract, and he reverted back to what he was. And I said, it's going to be a Jerome James contract. And I do think it's a little part of Mara. I think it's a part of the fact that, maybe Dable says, hey, listen, as long as I have this, and this, I can win with Jones. And I believe, to Rob's point, it was also the fact that, it's going to be more difficult to take if you win 9 games and you move on for your quarterback and you take a step back, everyone's going to say it's because of the quarterback.
It costs you your job.
Yeah, but here's the thing that's really going to kill you. If you win 9 games and then win 5 next year, and Daniel Jones has the same season, everyone then is going to then say, well, not everyone. A lot of people say he doesn't have wide receivers or something happened with the offensive line. It was the winter equinox. There'll be some kind of complaint. But it just proves that Daniel Jones is just, he plateaued. And then you're still stuck with him for one more year. And even if you move on from him in 2025, you're still owe him $18 million in dead cap space against your salary cap.
Yeah, it's very rare that, look at, like, I think Seattle is the outlier here when it comes to that, because Seattle got rid of, a Pro Bowl, Super Bowl winning quarterback and plugged in Geno Smith, who was there as far as being a backup for a couple of years. And they made it to the playoffs. And I think that's just because Pete Carroll is a great coach and really knows how to build a football team. But he did it prior. Like, they brought in Matt Flynn. If people remember, they signed Matt Flynn to a big time, like 3 or 4 year contract. And then they drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd or 4th round. And he ended up winning the starting job, right? And the rest is history. So very rarely do you see a team move on from a quarterback that's had success and it work out. I mean, ask Houston what's been going on. They've been through 3 or 4 different head coaches since Deshaun Watson left. I mean, it does not bode over well. It doesn't always work. So I think Joe Shane knew that. And people want to compare it to Buffalo. Like, back in the day, he wasn't the one calling the shots, but if you want to look at it, Buffalo had assets that they could trade. They had Sammy Watkins that they could trade. Cordy Glenn, who was a young, top prospect at the offensive line, they traded him, right? They had multiple draft picks. So they won a playoff game, but at the same point, they were in a position where they drafted their quarterback. Like, they decided to move up and draft a quarterback, but they had the assets to move up and to do it. We didn't have that. I will guarantee you this. I will say this. I will say this wholeheartly, right? If Evan Ingram was on this roster last year, right? If Evan Ingram was on a 2-year, this was like his 5th year option, right? Going into this year, because I think they picked up his 5th year option, Evan Ingram. So he's going to be in Jacksonville next year.
Yeah. Say
Evan Ingram was with the Giants last year and had the same success he had. And say you had another player, right? I guarantee you, and the Giants still have the same season, Joe Shane would have considered moving on from Jones because he had assets to move. He could have packaged some picks with Evan Ingram and something like that and moved on from Jones and moved up and got his guy. It's about, like, if you don't have the picks to move up last year, the only way he was getting up was picks. He had no players to add. He had no players to add to move up and get capital for. None. The only one that he could move was Leonard Williams, nobody's taking on that deal. And Saquon Barkley, but that's your franchise player. You're not going to move on from him. Who are they going to move? Who are they going to trade? Nobody. So the only thing that you can use to move up is draft capital. And you don't want to waste that. You don't want to use that if you don't like. So what else? Yeah, I mean, what else? What else are you going to do? Ideally, you want to package players and draft picks to move up because it will cost you less draft picks. But the player that you're trading has to be worth it.
That's the question, and that's the thing. I mean, and I think it's easier. I don't know. It's hindsight is 2020 and everything else. But this is going to be a weird year, Rob. And I'm gonna tell you this right now because, and I actually want your opinion on this because I was talking to someone about this yesterday. I think if the Giants regress this year, I still think you are going to have a segment of the fan base that's going to say it has nothing to do with Daniel Jones. Even if statistically it's proven that it has something to do with Daniel Jones, I think people are going to say it has nothing to do with Daniel Jones. It's the offense. It's Kafka's too conservative. They're not letting him.
Line.
It's the line. It's again, the grass was cut too high on one side of the field. When do you think, and will there be a time? When do you think that there will, or if there will be a time that people who are so firmly entrenched in the Daniel Jones camp finally see something that switches them or sways them to the opinion maybe Daniel Jones is not the guy?
You want my honest answer?
No, I want you to lie.
It's when Arch Manning is coming out.
Really?
And he's going to be in the draft. 100%.
Really?
100%. When Arch Manning is coming out, again, this guy has
Texas yet.
Yeah, he hasn't even won the job. But if Arch Manning comes out and is the quarterback that people think that he's going to be, and they're hyping him up to be and everything like that, that is when people will be okay with moving on from Daniel Jones. And to be honest with you, when you think about it, Jones's contract is kind of set up for when Arch would be coming out of college.
Yeah, year or two off.
So, I mean, theoretically, if Jones is here 3 years, so he's here 23, 24, I think, and then 25, I think that's when Arch would be eligible to enter into the draft is in the 2025 offseason.
Yeah, that would definitely be the earliest. Don't forget to hit the like button. I keep forgetting, killing people. Get the like, man. What's up, Big Greg in Sweden? We're going to be closing this out in a minute or two. I want to burn through a couple more of these. Mr. Albert says, if they only had the chance to let him go and draft Justin Fields, oh, wait. It's funny. You're getting a lot of Justin Fields love right now from not only, people outside of Chicago, a lot of
I like Justin.
I love Justin Fields. I said that in people ask me all the time. I want, and I always laugh because I told people during our draft stream, I wanted to draft Justin Fields because of the fact that I thought he was more athletic than Jones. I thought he was going to have a higher upside potential. But again, like Jones, Justin Fields has only had a handful of good games last year, and he was the Chicago offense, and he has now been given weapons. That's the key word to help him. Ryan Poles is putting a team together in Chicago. But it's kind of weird because it's kind of the Daniel Jones thing. If Justin Fields regresses this season,
they can move on.
They
have two first round picks next year.
Yeah, they can move on from him.
I was talking to a buddy of mine. Justin is basically in the same position that Jalen was in this year. That if he doesn't take a leap, then they were primed. They had 2 first round picks. They were going to move on and they would have drafted Richardson or CJ or whoever. Like they would have moved on. So Justin Fields, I mean, look, when you guys look at the numbers, the Bears offense had I think 5,200 yards of total offense. Justin acquitted for 3,500 of those 5,200 yards.
Yeah.
They had 37 touchdowns, and he acquitted for 25 of those touchdowns, of those 37 touchdowns. His leading receiver was Cole Kmet with 536 receiving yards. And the game that against the teams like Dallas and Philadelphia, where our quarterback struggled, he looked in control and was the only reason why they were even winning those football games. He looked calm. He didn't look
They
flustered.
only won 3 games.
And they only won 3 games. But when you go and you look at him against the Eagles game, I know that Jalen got hurt that game, but he didn't look flustered in the pocket.
No.
Didn't look flustered. Why is it that he's able to stay calm and he doesn't have a great offensive line?
No,
but
Daniel
Jones runs around like a chicken with its head cut off.
He had Alex Leatherwood starting for him, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I love when people talk about Daniel Jones's offensive line. Chicago's offensive line was probably one of the worst offensive lines that I've ever seen in the history of modern football. But I love this thing right here. You got people still saying, where was it right here? Let's see here. Justin Fields can only run. Daniel Jones does everything. Justin Fields had more passing touchdowns than Daniel Jones. Justin Fields had more rushing yards. Justin Fields, you want to talk about having no one to throw to Rob's point, he had nobody to throw to. I mean, you had the epitome of the Home Depot team in the wide receiver room for the Chicago Bears.
The Chicago had one receiver that had over 500 yards, which was Cole Kmet. Their next receiver had like 336 yards. And then they had 2 receivers that had like 200 yards, and the rest were all 100 yards or less.
Yeah. But people don't want to talk about that. People don't want to talk about that. To Rob's point, the wins that Chicago had, Justin Fields was the reason why they won those games. Justin Fields,
100%.
Like I said, if he doesn't go out in Philadelphia, maybe Philadelphia doesn't win 25-20.
And they don't have a Saquon Barkley at running back.
You forget about
Justin's their whole offense.
You forget about the Atlanta game, which they lost 24-27, or the Lions game they lost 30-31, or the Miami game they lost 35-22. They had games that they were there was a lot of excitement in Chicago in certain games. They just have to learn how to finish games.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the Giants had to do. That's what Kayvon Thibodeau has to do. You have to learn how to finish. And I think that's what they're going to happen at the end of the year. Let's see here.
Fields had better receivers than Jones. Freeman, go look at. I already gave you the stats book. Go back and you look at the receivers that
I wasn't even going with those questions. I wasn't even going. I took his word, and that was it. That was it. That's I wasn't even going. I can't. I'm leaving. We're checking out right now, and I wasn't going to deal with stupidity. JJ said, "What's up, fellas? Great show as always. Hope everyone had a good show. Don't forget, training camp's going to be coming up soon. We are going to be doing. I think it's August 16th. We are doing the once again the Coaches Club giveaway. So we're going to take 3 subscribers to the Coaches Club, hang out on the field after the game, do all the fun stuff, meet some former Giants. So we figuring out how to give away those tickets within the next couple weeks. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Rob, it's, it was a good show. We hadn't been on the mic for a couple weeks. I haven't done a video in a couple weeks. Hopefully I may have a video out tomorrow. I haven't decided yet. Any final thought?
No, for any of you guys, worried about the Barkley thing, I think a deal's going to get done. It's leaning that way. I think there's a lot. I think Joe realizes that he's got really almost kind of no other option, because what's going to end up happening is they're going to sign him. His cap hit is going to probably be like $5 or $6 million this year. They'll free up $4 or $5 million. And then they're going to go up to Darnay Holmes and they're going to be like, hey, Darnay, either you take a pay cut or we're going to cut you. And they're going to do the same exact thing that they did with Darius Slayton last year. And that's going to free up probably about another $2.5 million, maybe $3 million. And there's your $7 million. They got 3.6 right now in availability. So that'll put them at $11 million. And that's the in-season operating money. So unless somebody gets hurt, the Giants aren't making any more moves. The Giants aren't going to be doing anything more. And the reason for it, and why I think this is going to get done, is for 2 reasons. 2 names, Leo and Adoree. I don't think he wants to do anything with either one of those 2 guys whatsoever. If he did, they would have been done already. Leo already confirmed in interviews that they hadn't spoken at all. He hasn't spoken, his representation hasn't spoken with the Giants, and Adoree either. So I think he wants to let these guys expire on the contracts that they're on. And if he wants to bring them back at the end of the year, he'll bring them back and he'll talk with them. Otherwise, he's going to wash his hands with them and move on. That's what it's going to come down to.
Giants have over a little bit of $4 million right now in cap space, but that is with the rule of 51. That number is going to go way down. Right now, if you want to talk about total estimated cap space, they're at about a negative 28 million, but they also have something like 90 contracts. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does because I don't see the operational cap space. I've been looking at the numbers now for about a week and a half, and I'm seeing the Giants coming in maybe at $1 million to $1.5 million in cap space once the rule of 51 expires. So some things are going to still have to be done. Some moves are going to still have to be made. I don't, to your point, I don't believe there's going to be any restructuring of Adoree Jackson or Leonard Williams, but I do think the Giants may move on from some of these other contracts that they have, or they may restructure someone like Tyrod Taylor, or they may restructure someone like Lewinsky just to move that number down, give him,
Probably.
transfer up, take some of that money and transfer more over to a signing bonus and
give a void year or something like that.
Give him a void year, but actually have that void year mean nothing. Just say, hey, listen, we're going to give you all this. We're going to give you this. We're going to knock your salary down to $2 million, but we're going to transfer the rest into a $6 million bonus. And then, we're going to give you a number for 2024 and not have that number mean anything. Because the Giants are sitting at $22 million in dead cap space right now. And everyone kind of forgets about that because of some of the moves that Shane made. So hopefully that'll move forward and manage itself a little bit better. But I am curious to see what they're going to do with cap space wise. I really am.
He's going to have to get creative for sure.
He's going to have to get creative, and everyone keeps talking about the millions of dollars that we have next year. Right now, we're sitting at about $45 million in cap space for 2024. So, and because you got to remember the Jones contracts, you got to remember some of the other contracts that are coming up, and you got Andrew Thomas, you got a bunch of other players. But you know what, Rob? It was a good stream. It was a good show.
It was.
We you know what? I'll have to try to get a video out or something. We'll have more content coming out. People keep saying, well, where did you go the last 2 weeks? Because I even looked, I hadn't done a video like in 17 days. I was like, I was busy. It's the summertime, guys. You know what that means when it's the summer? You have to make sure you do everything right. Make sure you apply that sunblock. Use SPF 50 because this is Tim. This is Rob. But you know what? This is Giant Sunday. It's been one of those days. Appreciate everyone. Have yourself a great weekend, and we're out of here.